edition of 99% Geek presents a book reading of A Suburban Fantasy. This is going to be Chapter 7. I apologize for last week's book reading. I fell asleep at a certain point late in the reading, and I apologize. Well, I watched it back, and let me tell you, it's not fun to watch yourself, especially not fall asleep. That was awkward. So that's not going to happen this time, that's for sure. Also, while I was watching myself, I kept flicking my nose. I'm like, stop it! Stop flicking your nose from that angle. It looks like you're just digging your finger in your nose. Stop it. Luckily, this is mainly a podcast. I don't know how many people watch it on YouTube. I know at least one person watches it on YouTube because we have some reader mail or listener mail. We have some listener mail for today, which is very exciting. For instance, we had somebody on YouTube. He posted on the video of Chapter 6 of Suburban Fantasy. He said, "Story time!" in exclamation marks and capital letters. And yeah, it is story time. I don't think he expected the story to put him to sleep, but I did respond, and he didn't respond back, so I guess it did put him to sleep, which is cool. I have another message too. This one was on the podcast itself. Somebody left a comment, and let's just say we get so little listener mail that anything can make the cut right now. So here we go. Mr. Rob Large sent a comment saying, "Am here to give my testimony for how I became a vampire." This is going to be interesting. "Long time ago, a friend of mine told me that vampires are real, and I doubted it at the first place. Not until she confessed to me that she is one of them. So, when she said, 'I am one of them,' he's like, 'I believe you now.'" That's great. Let's move it on. Okay, she told me the reason she had to became a vampire, at first I was scared of her, but later she made me, so he's not going to tell me the reason. She told him the reason, but he's not going to tell me the reason. Okay? I was scared of her. At first I was scared of her, but later she made me understand that I need not to be scared, and that becoming a vampire will only make me live longer than expected, become famous, wow, these are amazing powers, and be able to fight all my enemies, because, of course, everyone has to fight enemies, the world is Scott Pilgrim, which I later agreed to become. I never thought it was real, not until recently. When she told you that she was one. We already covered that. I am very proud to be one of them now. I have no reason to be scared to give my testimony to the world. In case you're interested, just contact Dr. Aragon email." So his vampire name, I guess, is different than his real name. And he gives an email, I suppose I will not give. So that's interesting. Fascinating. Thank you for that, Mr. Rob Large, or Dr. Agon. Cool. Have fun being a vampire. So those were the listener mail of the week. And now we're going to read some Suburban Fantasy. What's a Suburban Fantasy about? Well, we begin every episode with "Previously on a Suburban Fantasy." Alright. So Rachel Lin Smith is a teenage girl, half Asian, half American. She's shy, chronically so. She has a bunch of geeky friends who put up with how shy she is. She has a brother younger than her. She has a mother who's stern but loves her, a father who's kind but hates her. No, he loves her too. Yes, silence you. I will turn that off so you don't have to hear my phone buzzing in your mic. Okay, my mic. Alright, so Rachel and Smith, one day the president of the student council, the most popular girl in school, invites her to a birthday party. And she goes to that birthday party, and she meets a man there, an old man, who manipulates her into letting him take advantage of her. And he turns her into a vampire because he is a vampire. And he tries to make her a victim, but for the most part, she manages to escape unscathed, but forever changed. And she returns back to her friends, her geeky friends, who try to help her, figure out these changes and how best to cope with them, and try to reintegrate her into her life, and they do a pretty good job, at least until a man who her sire had attacked while she was with him finds her, a bounty hunter. He was dating someone and now she's dead, and he's come looking for her, and he shoots her, and she manages to get away, not without the president of student council finding out that she's a vampire. And as they were in the bathroom kissing, it occurred to them that there was video that that the school obviously has cameras, and that those cameras could have seen now that she's a vampire as well. So that's where this chapter begins. Chapter 7. You think heaven gets broadband? Never fear, Andrew's here, said Andrew smoothly as he let the front doors of the school close behind him. Spotting Rachel and Tanya together, he couldn't help but smile. Now was his moment to impress Tanya Dayton, the school president. So, ladies, what's up? Really? Tanya asked rhetorically. Why did you call Andrew of all people? The Ghostbusters were busy, Andrew joked, hiding the stab he felt in his chest. It bothered him the way Tanya talked to him, but what could he do? He still thought she was hot, and if given the chance, he would have done anything for just one date. Would you just show him the room? Rachel asked Tanya. She was wearing Tanya's leather jacket, which looked several sizes too large on her. Her hands didn't even come close to reaching through the sleeves. It almost would have been funny, but Rachel wasn't looking very amused. Was she leaning against that pillar? Andrew couldn't be certain, but he thought he saw blood drip from her left sleeve. What happened? Andrew asked, now more curious than ever. Tanya didn't say anything, but gestured for him to follow her. He slung the bag higher on his shoulder and followed her down the hall to a door he'd never even seen before. It's a surveillance room, Rachel said from behind Andrew. Andrew turned with a start, not noticing till then that she'd been following them. What would we want the surveillance room for? Asked Andrew, more clueless than ever. The cameras somehow saw something we want you to erase, Tanya told Andrew impatiently, so let's all hope you're as good with computers as you always brag to be. What did they see? Andrew asked Rachel, still quite confused. Leaning in close, he whispered to her, You said this was a code black. She knows, Rachel said with a nod to Tanya. Tanya pulled a ring of keys from her tight jeans pocket. Sliding one of the 30 keys into the lock, she opened the door and waved Andrew inside. I think the footage should speak for itself. The surveillance room was like a dark, dingy closet, but with a small desk and computer wires. Wires ran naked along the walls, and the room was a good 10 degrees hotter than the rest of the building. The room was so small that only 2 people could fit between the desk and the door, and even then, only barely. What did the other keys open? Andrew asked as she slipped the clinking mass back into her pocket. He was more interested in her ring of keys than in the room. Well, she said, rolling her eyes, when 1,000 people vote for you in an election, then you can have your own set of keys. Can't wait, Andrew said sarcastically, sitting down at the desk. The surveillance cameras all ran through one computer, and, by the sound of the fan, the computer really hadn't been made to handle that much processing for an extended period of time. When he touched the mouse, it took a number of seconds before the screen turned on. The view wasn't reassuring. Do you know the password? Andrew asked Tanya hopefully. The login screen stared angrily at him like a brick wall sticking out its tongue, or like how Tanya was staring at Andrew right about then. No, Tanya said in surprise. Isn't that supposed to be your job? Andrew leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms in thought. I know a lot about computers, he admitted. Doesn't mean I can hack a 16-character password in a night. A night? Tanya repeated incredulously. Clearly she wanted him to work faster. Well, Rachel? She asked. Any other bright ideas? Hey, Andrew interrupted quickly, annoyed that Tanya would have so little faith in him. Don't give up on me yet, girl. I might have something up my sleeve. He hit the power button on the computer, turning it off. Pushing the keyboard away from himself, Andrew made room on the table and pulled out his laptop from his satchel. He also pulled out a screwdriver. That's the smallest screwdriver I've ever seen, Tanya told him, making him blush slightly. I needed it small to fit into tight spaces, Andrew said, throwing her a dirty look as he continued. Now, if you don't mind, the man is going to need quiet as he works with his tools. Oh, would you like to be left alone with your tool for a minute until you finish? Tanya asked with obvious annoyance, but sticking to the sexual innuendo he'd started. Andrew didn't respond, but pulled the computer tower out from under the table and crawled underneath it with his screwdriver and iPhone. Using the flashlight app, Andrew began unscrewing the screws surrounding the computer's case. You can stay in touch. You can stay and watch if you'd like, Andrew told Tanya from under the desk. It was so dusty back there, Andrew had to wonder if anyone ever actually cleaned this closet of a room. I'd rather die, Tanya told Andrew with a hard grimace. Rachel pulled her own iPhone from her pocket and checked the time. It's getting late, she told Tanya. You can leave if you want. Why don't you go? Tanya asked her. I have to stay and lock up behind him. But you're wounded and should get some sleep. As Andrew watched with interest, Tanya reached out her hand to grab Rachel's. Rachel took a step back. All right, Rachel said with a very strange look to Tanya. Maybe I will go home. Andrew wasn't sure, but he thought he saw disappointment on Tanya's face. Was there something else going on, or was it just the same old crazy vampire drama? Either way, Andrew could tell neither girl thought it was any of his business. He knew how to take a hint. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. It was already long past sundown, and Rachel felt more than comfortable slipping from her school all the way home without being noticed. The whole trip took less than a minute. As she neared the driveway, she was in for a surprise to find her mother sitting casually on the steps outside their front door. She was hugging a recently uncorked bottle of wine, though very little remained. A wine glass sat near her, though it went completely unused as she took another drink from the bottle. Stepping from the shadows, Rachel approached her mom slowly and quietly. Her mother had a blanket around her shoulders, and her eyes were swollen as if she'd been crying. Mom? Rachel said at last. Her mother looked up at her with empty eyes, which Rachel had to admit she preferred to the hatred and anger of last night. Hey, Rachel's mom said with a thin and very forced smile. I think we need to talk, Rachel continued, sitting down beside her mother. I think we can't stay mad at each other forever. Honey, her mother said, I'm so sorry I got mad at you. You had every right to, Rachel told her, surprised her mother wasn't still mad. I just wanted you to know how much I love you. I was fired, Rachel's mom explained, interrupting her apology. Rachel didn't know what to say. Why was it whenever things were bad, they only ever got worse? How? Rachel asked at last. When? Last weekend, her mother said slowly. Her eyes were unfocused as she continued. I had a very important business meeting between my company and one of our rivals. When you didn't come home Friday night, I called off the meeting. Only the meeting wasn't canceled. They just continued on without me. They went ahead with the merger and I was left behind. Her mother finished the bottle of wine in one long gulp and threw it away to shatter on the driveway. Collateral damage, she muttered to herself. I'll tear their throats out, Rachel said angrily, feeling the anger boiling just below her skin. Her mother deserved better than that. Hannah only smiled at her daughter's extreme choice of words. Well, that's sweet, she said, oblivious to how serious Rachel was being. But I think I'll be more productive, just to look for a new job. Rachel fell back so that she lay across their front porch. It's all my fault, she said with frustration. Yeah? her mother admitted honestly. But I never should have hit you like I did. I was scared for a moment that I'd really hurt you. Tears began to well, and she choked. I'm so sorry. I promise I'll never touch you like that again. Rachel pulled herself up. So you're forgiving me? She asked. For reals? Her mother shrugged. I suppose, she said. Rachel jumped forward, squeezing her mother tightly in their first mother-daughter hug in a long time. Though I am quite drunk, Rachel's mother added as she tried and failed to get up. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. Oh! Andrew exclaimed, taking a picture of his laptop screen with his phone. He sent the photo to Bilal and rewound the footage to watch it again. Look at the way that bolt goes just straight through her shoulder, he said with a chuckle. Tanya crossed her arms judgmentally, and Andrew got the distinct impression that she was fighting back a strong urge to punch him. It's not very funny, you know. Andrew wound the footage again, and this time played it in slow motion. No, Mr. Psycho Bartender, don't shoot me with that crossbow, he said, pretending to be Rachel. No! Oof! He broke into laughter as she slowly stumbled backwards from the impact of the bolt. I think if you had been there, Tanya said under her breath, you'd be taking this a lot more seriously. Andrew hadn't been able to break into the surveillance system, but he didn't have to. Instead, he just pulled the hard disk from the computer and connected it to his laptop so that he could navigate it as if it were an external drive. And then he pulls out a gun, Andrew said with excitement. Tanya got up and started pacing impatiently around the small room. I bet you were scared. Can you stop talking? Tanya asked, like for the rest of the night. Just erase the footage and go. Nothing more needs to be said. Andrew had no intention of staying quiet. Can't I just change the topic of conversation? No, Tanya said, as she sat back down beside him. Everything you ever say, ever, ends up sounding creepy, ever. I made you in my Sims game, Andrew told her. See? Tanya said without giving him a chance to continue. That's creepy. There was a long pause as Tanya and Andrew both watched the progress bar make its way across the screen. Our Sims are happily married, Andrew added at last. 3 years. I cheated on you, but we had counseling. It didn't really solve anything, but we stayed together for the kids. Are you done? Tanya asked quickly. Yeah, no. You've set our kitchen on fire like 3 times. I've been trying to teach you cooking, but it doesn't take. I mean, I've never really tried the virtual you, but I've never really told the virtual you, but it really bothers me. The bar hit 100% on the screen. That felt good to get off my chest. I'm done now. Make it look exactly like it did before, Tanya told him. She clapped her hands and said impatiently, Come on, let's go. Sorry, Patton. Andrew crawled under the desk, fitting the hard drive back into its casing. As he started screwing the case together again, his phone vibrated. It's Bilal texting me back about the pic I sent him, he told Tanya, choosing for her sake not to elaborate. There was a moment that no one spoke. But finally, Tanya's curiosity got the best of her. What did he say? She asked. Andrew smiled victoriously to himself. He says LOL. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. So who knows? Ian asked Andrew the next morning. Ian showed up at Andrew's house early Tuesday morning to find a large blue cooler filled with little blood bags not too far removed from those seen at hospitals. We know, Andrew told Ian, counting the names on his fingers. Bilal knows, Jason knows, and Rachel obviously, and now Tanya. Not a very well-kept secret, Ian commented. Can you help me with this? He asked Andrew, pointing to the cooler as he lowered the lid. He didn't like that Rachel hadn't told him about what happened last night. Why did he have to hear it from Andrew? Was she that mad at him? Andrew looked at the bin and sighed. All right, he said, grabbing one of the handles. Ian grabbed the other handle and they started off for Rachel's house, the cooler held between them. Do you think she'll tell Alice? Andrew asked Ian. Don't tell Alice, I think she'll know. No. Nobody say that. That's just me. When logic and proportion have fallen sloppy dead. Alice is Tanya's best friend, by the way. Alright. Do you think she'd tell Alice? Andrew asked Ian. Ian shrugged. I don't think so. I don't know, he admitted. It wasn't like she told him anything anymore. Well, can't we tell Mike? Andrew asked. I mean, he's a closer friend to us than Tanya. Hell, he's closer to us than Rachel. Closer to you than Rachel, Ian muttered, throwing Andrew a dirty look. Did you forget you're not the center of the universe again? I just think Mike should know, Andrew told Ian. It's supposed to be a secret, Ian told him. We can't just tell everyone. But Tanya knows. Ian shrugged. It's not even your secret to tell, he told Andrew angrily. Let Rachel tell him when she's ready. Ian thanked God they were almost at Rachel's house. His arms were starting to ache. Andrew sighed. When will that be? When will that be? He asked. Ian shrugged again, but didn't say anything this time. He wasn't a betting man, but if he had been, he'd have bet his life savings that Rachel was listening in on their conversation. Sure enough, she was waiting for them outside her house, sitting patiently on the steps leading to her front door. Special delivery, Andrew said as they dropped the cooler at her feet. Ian grabbed the lid and pulled it open. I could use some water, but I forgot to make myself water. I could get up and grab some, but I don't want to ruin this podcast. Alright. So, Ian grabbed the lid and pulled it open. Rachel got up and looked inside excitedly. Ian thought Rachel looked tired, like she'd been struggling against the hunger all night. Oh my lord, Rachel said to herself, her eyes almost glowing as she reached for a blood bag. Is this not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Andrew crossed his arms, clearly finding her words a little disturbing. What do you mean? He asked. Like Niagara Falls beautiful or Scarlett Johansson beautiful? Ian stepped on Andrew's foot. If Andrew even noticed at all, he didn't show it. Like an oasis in the desert beautiful? Rachel told Andrew, barely paying attention to either of them. She was searching the blood bag for an opening. Maybe you need like a stabby straw or something, Ian suggested. Andrew turned to Ian and asked, like a Capri Sun juice pouch? Rachel gave up her search and sunk her teeth directly to the bag. Alright, Andrew said, gesturing to Rachel. Disaster averted. Can we go? Why are you in such a hurry? Ian asked suspiciously. Andrew had never been in a hurry to get to school early before, and they'd be at least an hour early if they left now. Andrew looked away across the street, as if trying to decide whether or not to share some big secret. I left my iPhone in the surveillance room, Andrew told them angrily. It was a stupid move, he said, but I'd like to get it back before anyone else has a chance of finding it and keeping it for themselves. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. Rachel knew that Ian wanted to have a private conversation with her, but with Andrew walking with him to school it was impossible. It wasn't until they got there and Andrew ran off to grab his phone that Ian finally had a chance to say what was on his mind. I'm sorry you think I was spying on you, Ian told her. Rachel laughed despite herself, but crossed her arms. Was that even an apology? She asked him. I wasn't spying on you, he continued. I'm only trying to help you. Well, I didn't ask for your help, Rachel said. She didn't know why she kept getting so mad at Ian. She'd been intending all last night to apologize to him for the way she acted, but then he had to come along and say the wrong things. Actually, you did, he said loudly. Saturday night, you came to my door and you told me you had nowhere else to go. Before you went to anyone else, even your family, you came to me. I know, she whispered, no longer feeling like she wanted to fight or argue, or whatever they were doing. Her night last night hadn't been so bad. After her parents had gone to bed, she'd conducted some masturbatory research. She'd been worried that things might not work so well for her down there. After all, she was 3 days late for her period. Not enough time for a normal girl to have any reason to worry, but Rachel wasn't a normal girl. And yes, I'm digging into the sexual realities of a vampire in the most clinical, scientific way possible. So that's exciting. The verdict was beyond positive, with a side of amazing. And masturbation had proven to be a good distraction from the hunger. The fact of the matter was that she actually felt pretty content. She was altogether done being angry, both at Ian and herself. Maybe that was just her stomach talking. "I'm sorry you spied on me," she told him. Ian seemed about to complain about her apology, but he noticed her grin and quickly realized she was mocking him. "I heard you got attacked last night," Ian said with concern. "You should have texted me instead of Andrew." Rachel shot him a sympathetic glance. "All right," she said. "I'm sorry you don't know more about computers." "Very funny," Ian said without laughing. But don't you think maybe you should be more careful?" His voice dropped so only she could hear him. "Steve is still out there," he whispered to her. "I don't need to go into hiding," Rachel told him. She was starting to get a little frustrated with all the obstacles that seemed to be diving in between her and a normal life. "What I need is something to do at night. I'm losing my mind with boredom." Ian looked at her incredulously. Clearly he was more worried about Steve than Rachel was. After all, Steve had attacked her once with little effect. Her shoulder had stopped bleeding shortly after 11 last night, and she was pretty sure since drinking that animal's blood that even the scar had healed. Let Steve come to her. She was feeling ready for a round 2. At least an attack from him would save her from the mindless lazing around she was forced to do every night from midnight to morning. Sure, she spent much of that time drawing, but she didn't like what she was drawing. She just couldn't stop. "In old vampire lore," Ian told Rachel, "vampires still needed sleep. I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but I think we should try a coffin." "Hell no," Rachel said quickly. "I have no trouble sleeping." Noticing the confused look on Ian's face, he remembered that she hadn't told anyone about her dreams. "I just hate what happens when I do," she added sheepishly under his scrutinizing gaze. Rachel shrunk away from him and sat on a nearby ledge. Ian didn't say anything for a moment, but finally sat down beside her and asked, "What happens when you sleep?" "I see dead people," Rachel whispered in her best Sixth Sense impression. Ian gave a dull laugh, but stopped when he realized Rachel wasn't laughing too. "You're not serious?" he asked her as she reached into her backpack and pulled out her sketch pad. She handed it to him, but he didn't open it. "You haven't shown me your art for a long time," Ian pointed out to her. "That's 'cause I'm scared of what I keep drawing," she said, pulling back the cover. The first drawing she did was a pencil sketch of Lily. Ian looked the picture over and tapped his finger on the name at the bottom. She'd signed every portrait with the girl's name. Even the ones she hadn't met yet, somehow she knew exactly who they were. "Is this the girl from Flashdance?" Ian asked. "I know, right?" Ian turned the page to a portrait of a red-haired hippie with flowers around her head. This time, Ian noticed the dates beside her name, 1949 to 1967. Flipping back to Lily, he traced his finger on her years, 1965 to 1984. The next picture was a greasy-looking woman working in a factory, and her dates were 1955 to 1945. Oh, 1925 to 1945. Yes, she went back in time. That'll be something for later. Who are these people?" Ian asked her, going through a number more. "I don't know," she said, unsure how to explain everything. "They're just people. And I keep drawing them, whether I want to or not." "You can't draw anything else?" Ian asked. Rachel shook her head. She'd really tried. Tried drawing a cat, or a car, or a tree. She would always zone out and suddenly find herself drawing another of the girls. There were always more. "I see them in my dreams," she told him. "I talk to them and they tell me they want to help me against Eckhart." "The vampire turned you?" Ian asked. It seemed he was having a hard time keeping up. Rachel nodded. "So what do you say?" Ian asked. "Nothing," she replied. "I wake up." She wanted to say more, but there were so many people around them passing by on the way to class. Rachel lowered her voice to a whisper and leaning close to Ian's ear. "These girls scare me," she explained. "All this freaky shit scares the crap out of me." She grabbed his shirt and pulled on it. "It's too big for us." "Have you ever even tried to do any research on these girls?" Ian asked. "Or asked what they wanted?" "I'd rather watch infomercials all night," Rachel told him stubbornly. She got up to leave, but Ian grabbed her arm. "Have you tried to get your old job back?" Ian asked. When Rachel shook her head, he continued, "You missed a shift, but they might not fire you if you apologize." Have you ever heard of a vampire working at a coffee shop? Rachel asked him. Why not? Ian asked. It's open all night. It was as if a light bulb had gone off in Rachel's head. The coffee shop could be the answer to her problems. That's a capital T. Boop. Alright, the coffee shop could be the answer to her problems, and it would continue to help pay for her now irregular eating habits. Thanks, Rachel said genuinely, punching him lightly on the arm. You're always the cool head under pressure. She grabbed her bag and would have remembered to grab her sketch pad from Ian, had Andrew not interrupted them. She's after me, Andrew said, tearing around the corner. What happened? Ian asked. Rachel could feel her muscles tightening as her defenses went up. Was there danger? I went back to the surveillance room to get my iPhone, Andrew told them, and guess who got there first? Oh no, Ian said to himself. Not Vice Principal Hurley. Oh no, Ian said to himself. Not Vice Principal Hurley. Yeah, that's better. That woman is evil, Andrew said with a shudder. Rachel could hear Hurley's high heels tapping against the polished tile floor down a nearby hallway. You'd better go, she told Andrew, even as she caught a whiff of the vice principal's floral-smelling perfume. The woman was getting closer. There's no escape, Andrew said, dashing down a different hallway even as Hurley turned the corner. Have either of you seen your friend, Andrew? Hurley asked him warmly. I believe I found his phone. Is he in trouble? Is he in any trouble? Rachel asked. The vice principal didn't seem nearly as mad as she'd expected the woman to be. No, Hurley said. Though there was a shooting last night. Someone broke a couple of office windows and tampered with the surveillance footage. You don't think it was Andrew, Ian said quickly, do you? Andrew involved in a shooting? Hurley suggested. That would be ridiculous. I just wanted to ask him some questions. He was likely the last one there before the crime. Rachel pointed down the hall. He just went that way, she told the vice principal honestly. Ian kicked her shin, but it was too late. What did you tell her that for? Ian asked Rachel once Hurley was gone. She said Andrew wasn't in trouble, Rachel reasoned. I was only trying to help. Ian crossed his arms and said, You're 100% responsible for anything that happens next. What could possibly happen? Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. Can you go over all this again? Andrew's dad asked. Andrew had been trying to explain to his father exactly why he'd been suspended for 3 days. The explanation required some digesting. His father was wearing all black, had a scraggly black beard with little tufts of black hair atop his head surrounding a large bald spot. He had thick glasses that he peered through intently at his son while Andrew tried to explain one more time. I was running from the vice principal, Andrew began. That's a great start, by the way, his father told him. She was calling my name in a very threatening way, Andrew admitted. So then you beat up a handicapped kid, Andrew's father said, finishing his son's story. That wasn't how it happened. I tripped over her wheelchair, Andrew tried to explain to his dad. I didn't do it deliberately, he said, and I didn't know those stairs were there. Andrew's father didn't say anything, but instead slammed his forehead into his desk. I know what you're thinking, Andrew told his father. I'm thinking, his dad replied at last, that I can't believe my son would be so stupid to push over a handicapped kid. Was it some kind of initiation? Are you the king of the idiots now? He raised his head from the desk, and it shot Andrew a scornful gaze. Andrew swallowed loudly. All right, he said. I'd like to point out for the record, she wasn't really handicapped. She was only going to be in that chair for a couple weeks. His father slammed his forehead again into his desk, startling Andrew enough to step back. They say she'll need a few more now, and he added reluctantly under his breath. Do I have to tell you you're grounded? Andrew's dad asked. Andrew wasn't sure how to answer that. He couldn't be grounded tonight. Can my punishment start tomorrow? Andrew asked. I have a very important tournament. Oh, good, his father said, eyes lighting up with new ideas for torture. Then your punishment is no Xbox for the week. Andrew wanted to complain, but his dad silenced him with a raise of his hand. Please, he said, if you're going to cry, can you do it around people who might actually care? Andrew turned to leave, but was stopped quickly to add defiantly, I wasn't going to cry. He was starting to feel a little sick and tired with his dad treating him like a little kid. The tournament was too big a deal for him to miss because of a stupid grounding. Oh shit, the tears were starting. Fight them back! Fight them back! What right did his father have to take away his Xbox? Andrew was 16 years old, and the tournament wasn't any kid's game. Grabbing the machine from his room, he shoved the console in his backpack and rushed back down the stairs to the door. Where are you going? Where are you going? Andrew's mom asked him in such a way that left Andrew feeling like she didn't really care. A project with Bilal? Andrew said offhand without even thinking first. He always believed that the best lies were ones that were mostly true. He was going to Bilal's house, and they were going to work on a project. Kinda. Don't stay out all night, she told him. Have I ever? As soon as Andrew closed the front door behind him, he shot Bilal a text. I need a pickup. Making a nearby park, he sat on a swing where he could drift aimlessly and watch the sun set into the orange horizon. When? When? Bilal texted back. Andrew frowned. Wasn't it obvious? Now, Andrew texted him. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. Genevieve Labelle lived from 1871 to 1891. Ian wasn't a history major, and from the look of her, he'd guessed that she'd fought in the American Revolution. But putting her name with the American Revolution into Google was bringing about nothing. Well, nothing that seemed at all related. Ian wasn't exactly the master at computers that Andrew was, nor was he particularly good at studying or research. He liked math, because it was simple. Research wasn't easy or structured, and there were certainly no formulas to follow. He'd been at it for a couple of hours in the school library, but hadn't had any luck. It was an hour after 5, and Ian figured he was likely the only kid still at school. Besides Tanya, of course, Ian was pretty sure she never left. Excuse me, Ian watched Tanya say to the librarian, who didn't do a very good job of hiding the fact he'd just been sleeping on the job. Mr. Kramer wasn't the most dedicated librarian in Oakville. Yeah, Kramer asked. He had long hair and was a tall man when he wasn't lounging in his chair behind his large desk. There were rumors all over school that Mr. Kramer had brought his own chair from home. It was a very comfortable-looking leather chair with cup holders, and it had wheels so he never even had to get up to do returns. You only have Volume 2 of this encyclopedia, Tanya tried to explain to Kramer, who admittedly looked far too stoned to be paying attention, and I was wondering if you could find out where Part 1 might be. The librarian sighed and leaned back. The librarian sighed and leaned back in his chair. I don't think we have one, he told Tanya. Can you check? She asked. I really need it for a project. This part is completely useless without the first section. Listen to this. Tanya opened the book to a random page and read, Toronto gang violence. Violence surrounding the gangs of Toronto detailed extensively on page 114 of Volume 1 under Gang War. She dropped the book on the desk and leaned against it. Now imagine that entry, but everywhere. Who writes an encyclopedia like that? Ian watched Mr. Kramer lean forward in his chair and grab the encyclopedia away from Tanya. I don't know what you want from me, girl, Kramer told her, but no amount of wand-waving on my part is going to get you that book. My name's Tanya, Tanya said, though Kramer seemed to ignore her. "I'm the school president, and you've been my librarian for 2 years. Pleased to meet you." She outstretched her hand, but Kramer just smiled, the book on the desk. "If you want part 1 so bad," he continued as if she hadn't said anything, "you should go on Amazon and order yourself a copy. And when you're done with it, you can donate it to our library because, in case you didn't know," his voice rose to an almost wheezy shriek, "that's the only way we get books." Ian watched as Tanya followed one of Kramer's many rude gestures towards the row of computers in the back of the library. Tanya caught Ian's eye, despite his desperate attempts to avoid her attention, and to cross the library towards him. If Kramer was bothered in any way by the sudden climax of his conversation with Tanya, he didn't show it as he closed his eyes and seemed to fall right back to sleep. "You're here late," Tanya told Ian, taking a seat beside him. "Working on a project," Ian lied. "What about you?" "A project," Tanya replied. Unlike everyone else, however, it seemed her project was quite real and not at all an excuse. Ian didn't really like Tanya knowing Rachel's secret. It wasn't because he didn't trust her, though. He didn't really trust any of the cool kids. But also, he was just suspicious on why she'd been so interested in Rachel. Ian wanted to believe it was Rachel's vampire condition, but Ian was pretty sure Tanya's interest peaked before that fateful weekend. "Isn't that Rachel's sketchbook?" Tanya asked, grabbing it from beside Ian's keyboard. "Hey!" Ian said, reaching for it. Tanya pulled it away from his grasp and flipped quickly through the pages. "Who are these people?" Tanya asked, scrutinizing Margaret Ivy Roost, born 1894. "Rachel doesn't know," Ian told her. "Not really." Tanya dropped the book back on the table. "Are they real people?" she asked. Ian shrugged. "She thinks they might be ghosts," he explained to her, though he didn't know why he was bothering. "She sees them when she sleeps." "Have you tried looking up any of these names?" "I was about to," he told her, not wanting to admit he'd already been at it for at least an hour, but without any luck. Tanya pulled up Google and typed in Margaret's name and date. A page of results came up, and Tanya breezed through the listed sites, turning to the second page. Reading one result, she clicked on it, bringing up another page. "What was that?" Ian asked, leaning over to watch her screen. "It's a list of Jack the Ripper victims," Tanya told him, even as the page loaded. It was a list of names that she quickly began to scroll through. Ian grabbed the book and began flipping pages. "Rachel is drawing Ripper victims?" he asked, more to himself than to Tanya. "Actually, she's only a rumored victim," said Tanya as she found Margaret's name near the bottom of the page, separated into a different list. "There are 5 commonly confirmed murders by Jack the Ripper. Mary Ann Nichols, for one, also known as Polly." Ian suddenly remembered something, the name Polly bringing up a memory of another page in Rachel's sketchbook. Flipping to it, he was disappointed to find that he wasn't wrong. "Polly Nichols," he said, pointing to a picture in the book, 1845 to 1888. The woman in the sketch looked beautiful, but rough around the edges. It seemed quite clear that she hadn't lived a life of luxury by any means. Tanya didn't say anything for a moment, as she quickly skimmed through the information on the site. Ian waited patiently, knowing that they were finally getting somewhere. He wasn't going to admit it to anyone, especially not himself, but maybe Tanya would be a good friend to have, after all. Finally she spoke. "After the first 5 victims, there were many others that shared a lot of similarities. Police classified them all as copycat murders, but..." Ian knew he wasn't going to like the answer to his next question, but he had to ask it anyway. "What kind of similarities?" he asked. "Lacerations to the neck," she said quietly. A shiver ran down Ian's back. "As the years went by, more and more murders started being labeled as a copycat killing, instead of actual Jack the Ripper cases. Margaret Roost's death was separated by so much time from the original murders that police were certain that they couldn't be connected." "So what are potential Jack the Ripper victims doing communicating with Rachel?" Ian asked. "Communicating with her?" Tanya asked. "Do you know what they've been saying?" Ian shrugged. "At this point, you know as much as me," he told her. "In fact," he continued, "I wouldn't be surprised if we know more now about these people than Rachel." Tanya seemed to stop and think for a second. Finally she asked him, Can you read Can you read me another name? Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. Rachel was bored. The sun had gone down, signaling that she could go outside without her umbrella, but for what purpose? What was a vampire to do? Homework. As it turned out, Rachel had hoped her homework would take up a majority of the evening, but she finished her essay in record time, and her math problems only took 15 minutes. She had serious doubts about the accuracy of her results, but she wasn't about to care. And then, she was bored again. She just wanted to be normal. How could she when normal people spent their evenings actually doing things? She couldn't even play video games with her brother, as he was off at a laser tag arena with Dad across town. Her mother was downstairs stressing over their finances. Ian was right. Rachel needed her job back. With her mind made up, she grabbed her knapsack from beside her closet and slapped her work clothes inside. Slipping quietly to the stairs, she took the steps two at a time before making straight for the door. Where do you think you're going? Rachel's mother asked her from the kitchen doorway. How did you know I was leaving? Rachel asked. She'd been as quiet as a vampire. I'm your mother, the older woman said with a smile. We know these things. Rachel grabbed a piece of paper from her knapsack and began scribbling a message on it. While you're here, she said to her mom, maybe you can help me. She quickly finished off the paragraph and drew a dotted line a good distance further down the page. Could you sign this? Rachel asked. Her mother took the paper and read it over. You want me to sign a letter telling your boss you weren't at fault for missing your shift last weekend? I had an emotional breakdown, Rachel said, mimicking what she'd written on the page. You really think you can just lawyer your way out of this? Her mother asked, dropping the form on the kitchen table. You gotta let me try, Rachel pleaded. Her mother looked at her sharply, over her thick red-rimmed glasses. No, I don't, she said, pulling a pen from her pocket. And normally I wouldn't even dream of signing my name on a lie. But someone has to step forward and make some money in this family, and it's never going to be your father. Rachel made a disgusted face, even as her mother signed the paper. But you're going to love Daddy forever and ever, she said. Oh, that's her. Rachel made a disgusting face even as her mother signed the paper. Let me go back one. Her mother looked at her sharply over her red-rimmed glasses. No, I'm not. No, I don't. I normally wouldn't even dream of signing my name on a lie, but someone has to step forward and make some money in this family. It's never going to be your father. Rachel made a disgusted face even as her mother signed the paper. But you're going to love Daddy forever and ever, she said with a sarcastic innocence. One fight does not equal divorce, Rachel's mother told her, even as the woman handed back Rachel's letter. So don't you go running away again. Rachel snatched the paper out of her mother's hand with a sigh of exasperation. I'm not going to run away again, she said with a roll of her eyes. She felt really guilty still, and embarrassed that everyone thought she was loopy enough to run away from home. She wished she could tell them the truth, but she also wished the truth wasn't vampire-related. Good luck, Rachel's mother yelled after her. She wouldn't need it. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. That's not good enough, her boss told her in a loud voice after skimming over the first paragraph on the page. I'm sorry, but you missed another shift on Tuesday. I have to fire you. But I'm willing to work night shifts, Rachel said. She knew they were always needing people to work nights. In fact, I want to work night shifts. Her boss stopped as his interest piqued, but after another look at her, he frowned. You need your parents' permission if you wanted to work nights, and no parent would agree to that. Mine did, she told him. Keep reading. She left enough space between her first paragraph and her mother's signature to write a second paragraph giving permission for her to work nights. He read the second paragraph and checked the signature as if to be sure it looked legitimate. Not that he really knew what her mother's signature looked like. Still, she felt proud of herself for outsmarting both her mother and now her boss. She was a clever little vampire. It was a dangerous combination. All right, he said at last. Ryan called in sick, and Holly is closing alone. Follow her lead, and if you still want to do midnights by morning, then we'll see. Thank you, Rachel said with a sly smile. Her boss threw on his coat and gave her another glance. You still have your uniform? he asked. She nodded even as he passed her and moved to leave. Well then, throw it on. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. This is the biggest moment of our lives, Andrew told Bilal and Bilal's sister, both watching Andrew quietly from the couch. Good times, good times, Bilal's sister told him, getting up to leave. I just started, Andrew said with disappointment. Aha, sit down, Nabila, Bilal said, pulling his sister back into her seat. This isn't the biggest moment of my life, she said, rolling her eyes at Andrew. She looked little like Bilal. Though Bilal was brown, he was very pale. Nabila, on the other hand, was not. Neither was she bone skinny. All right, Andrew said, always willing to compromise. This is one of the biggest moments in our lives. That doesn't even make top 50, she told him. Fine, he said quickly. This is a big moment in our lives. Nabila looked about to say something, and Andrew changed his statement one last time. There is a moment in our lives. If we are one of the winning teams, we'll get a clue. Oh, this is a moment in our lives. Alright, fine, he said quickly. This is a big moment in our lives. Nabila looked about to say something, and Andrew changed his statement one last time. This is a moment in our lives. If we are one of the winning teams, we'll get a clue. That would get us one step closer to solving this viral campaign. What viral campaign? Darkblade asked over the TV. Andrew already wore his headset, and Darkblade was listening to his speech over voice chat. I thought this was just some dumb minor contest. It's a little bigger than that, Andrew told Darkblade. This is round 1 of a series of contests, and once it's over, the winner will get a sneak peek of the next James Bond movie. I like James Bond, Nabila said grumpily. Really? Andrew asked in surprise. She shook her head. I don't actually know who that is, she told him. I was just trying to upset you. Andrew couldn't believe someone could not know who James Bond was. Super spy? Andrew told her. Lady killer? Oh shit, I did it again. I passed out again. God damn it. See, this is what happens. Alright, where were we? I don't think that was very long, was it? Like 30 seconds or something? God damn it. I need water, that's what I need. Okay, take a moment to get some water. This is the water break. Skip forward 30 seconds. Hope we did that before. Do. Oh, delicious. Alright, I'm back. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at recording podcasts. Literally the worst. Alright, so where we were. Water break. Do. Water break. Flash a little on my face. Blah, blah, blah. Alright. Alright. And you can believe someone... let's go back a bit further. Alright. Alright, so Darkblade asked if it was a contest, and then Andrew said, it's a little bigger than that, Andrew told Darkblade. This is round 1 of a series of contests, and once it's over, the winner will get a sneak peek of the next James Bond movie. I hate James Bond, Nabila said grumpily. Really? Andrew asked in surprise. She shook her head. I don't really know what that is, she told him. I was just trying to upset you. Andrew couldn't believe someone could not know who James Bond was. Super spy? Andrew told her. Lady killer? Nabila didn't seem too impressed. Coming from you? She said rudely. He must really suck. Bilal's younger sister always hated Andrew. Or maybe she liked Andrew and just pretended to hate him. Like the girl from Hey Arnold. Not that many people besides Andrew would get that reference. Can you let me finish my speech? Andrew asked, tired of the interruptions. This was a speech? Nabila asked incredulously. Andrew decided to give up. His speech wasn't worth it. Even if he had spent an hour writing it out, which he hadn't, it was more like 2 hours. Instead, he knelt in front of Nabila so that they could see eye to eye. I know you like to cause mischief, Andrew told her, blissfully aware that he was likely more of a troublemaker than she. After all, one of them was blatantly going against their father's orders, and it wasn't Nabila. Her parents were divorced. All I'm asking is that you give this contest a real effort, he continued. Nabila rolled her eyes and said, You mean you don't want me to kill you from behind? That too, Andrew said, getting up. All right, he said loudly enough to get Bilal and Darkblade's attention. The first team we're facing against is called the Blazin' Bitches. Aha, a little rude, Bilal commented. Andrew continued, I think they might actually be a team of girl gamers. If this is indeed the case, I'd like to suggest that I do most of the talking, so as not to intimidate them. He would have gone on, but Andrew was interrupted quite suddenly by Darkblade's deep voice in his ear. Hey, maybe I want to talk to the hot gamer chicks, he said, reminding Andrew that he knew nothing about Darkblade. Darkblade was probably pretty good with the ladies. Andrew had it in his head that pretty much everyone he met was better with the ladies than him, except Bilal. Oh my god, Nabila said flatly as she turned her attention to painting her nails. You guys are so lame. Like, there are boys in my grade more mature than you. Nabila was still in elementary school. We need to be logged in by 8, Andrew told them, while also ignoring Nabila, and the game should matchmake us automatically. You know it's already 8:05, right? Nabila told him, gesturing to a clock on the wall. Andrew turned to look and was shocked into act when he found she was right. Squeezing between them on the couch, Andrew fidgeted for the controller even as Nabila burst into giggles. That clock is off by 5 minutes, silly, Nabila told him between fits of laughter. You are just so gullible. It's really not that funny, Andrew muttered, believing her to be overreacting. There was a chime to let them know the game was going to begin, and both Bilal and as well as his sister jumped for their controllers. Immediately they were transported into a far grittier world. The map was a warehouse-styled locale with crates all around for cover, and both rain as well as thunder could be heard from outside. We should stick together, he told his 3 teammates, leading the way upstairs with confidence that the others would be behind him. Even Nabila seemed to be focused up at crunch time. He was leading them to the Gatling gun upstairs, one of the more contested power weapons on the map. The game would warn him if the other team grabbed it first, but as they entered the large room on the second floor, he was sure they were the first ones there. There were crates everywhere, but Andrew could see the Gatling gun in the middle. Before he could say anything, Nabila ran forward and grabbed it. While she was grabbing it, one of the other team's players poked out from behind a crate and shot Nabila down. Diving forward, Andrew revived Bilal's sister, and she started unleashing on the player. At the sight of the screen, Andrew saw another player rolling between crates. He tried to shoot at her, but he quickly lost track of which way she went. They were fast. Oh crap, Darkblade said into Andrew's ear. We've got another one down here. Andrew hoped Darkblade meant that the one he'd just seen. His hopes were demolished, however, when he realized Darkblade was shooting out to their left. The other team had gotten to the weapon first. They'd just set up a trap instead of taking the weapon for themselves. How many are out there? Andrew asked, trying to make sure they weren't forgetting anyone. Aha, 2, Bilal said, as he shot blindly at the enemy from behind his cover. Andrew knew Bilal's number was wrong, as he'd been the only one to see the 3rd player. And where was the 4th? Andrew turned to look, and it was good that he did. Someone had been sneaking up on them from behind, and he or she was just about to shotgun Bilal in the head. Andrew quickly meleeed the player, who startled and rolled forward. Darkblade went down, and Andrew tried to go for him, but the player he just meleeed rolled in front of him and killed Darkblade. Pissed off, Andrew fired a shotgun shot at the player, but the murderer just rolled away again. Not about to give up, Andrew swung his gun around in an attempt to follow the enemy player, and he blew her away with one shot of his gun. Be careful, Bilal, Andrew warned. These guys fight like Yoda. Bilal wasn't as lucky. 2 of the other players teamed up on him and downed him before turning on Andrew. Without anywhere safe to run, Andrew could only dive away. His dodge wasn't enough, and he was quickly downed as well. It was all up to Nabila against 3 guys. They were doomed. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. Rachel could hear Holly throwing up in the bathroom while she helped customers brew coffee in the front. While she helped customers and brewed coffee in the front. She wanted to go back and ask if Holly was alright, but she was dealing with a long line and couldn't exactly leave them to wait. Also, she had to be careful not to react to things she wouldn't have heard were she human, like the loud kids revving their cars in the parking lot. "Now these slot-nosed kids," a customer mumbled to her, asking for a coffee with 3 sugar as well as 2.5 cream. The half a cream was just an annoying extra step that she did bitterly, even as he continued with his late-night rough rant. "Where do you think they get the money for those cars? You think they have to work a day in their life?" Rachel shrugged, supposing he was right. How come Daisha got to spend her nights hanging with her friends, drinking alcohol, and having a good time? Sounded like a hell of a better deck of cards than what Rachel was stuck playing with. "You slave away in here," the old man told her, "and these kids get everything they ever want from their parents." He was right. She was pretty mad at those kids getting more for free than she ever got working all her life. And she was hungry. She wasn't sure what that had to do with anything, except that she should have drank some blood before coming. Though really, who would miss any of those kids? That was a joke. In poor taste, perhaps. Unsurprisingly, the customer was still mumbling as she gave him his coffee. "All I'm saying," he told her, "is that capitalism doesn't work. The rich and lazy get fatter and stupider on their beds of money, while the people doing the real work get paid in corn. There was a time communism was more than just the enemy. You know who made it the enemy? The rich, those lazy bastards who had the most to lose." The man turned with his coffee and spotted the new 3-bin recycle system her boss had implemented to be more green. "They want us to sort out our waste now," he told the woman behind him in line. "You know what we get out of all this fancy recycling isn't worth even close to the money and manpower it costs us. It's an inefficient system." Some people would just complain about anything. It was another good while before Rachel cleared the line that had formed in the store. Whenever you needed some quiet for whatever reason, that was always when they got busy. She had to be careful not to use her vampire powers, as there were cameras everywhere. If she could only come clean, she'd be able to serve the entire line in no time. As it was, she was helping customers for close to an hour before she finally made it back to check on Holly. She knocked on the door first and immediately heard Holly grow quiet. "You okay?" Rachel asked through the door. You heard me throwing up?" Holly asked with embarrassment through the closed door. "I'm crying," Rachel told her, adding insult to injury without even thinking first. "Don't come in," Holly said, reinforcing her statement with a click of a lock. Despite Holly's warning, Rachel put her weight against the door and snapped the deadbolt clean off. Slowly she opened the door to see Holly leaning over the toilet, her hair a mess and her makeup asunder under her pale face. She looked like an emotionally traumatized Kiss groupie. "I dropped my phone into the toilet," Holly mumbled, leaning back against the bathroom wall. Rachel folded her arms, thoroughly unconvinced at Holly's flimsy lie. "What kind of phone was it?" Rachel asked, not having to look into the toilet to know it was likely a mess of tissues and puke. "An A-phone," Holly told Rachel offhand. "Like the one your friend has." Is that supposed to say iPhone, I guess? Oh, yes. Ignoring that Holly had just called an iPhone something completely different. So she did that on purpose. Rachel couldn't help but notice that Holly's hand seemed to be shaking uncontrollably. "Are you cold?" Rachel suggested, sitting down on the floor beside Holly and putting her arm around the taller woman. It wasn't just her hand that was shaking, it was her whole body. Violently. "Maybe you should go home," Rachel said. "I'm sure I could do the bake alone." Rachel was of course lying. She'd never worked midnights before, and she wouldn't have even a first idea how to do the morning bake. But Holly looked bad. "I'm not sick," Holly told Rachel as she blew her nose into some toilet paper. Grabbing another wad, she tried to rub away some of the mess of makeup that had taken over her face, but she might as well have not bothered. Every stroke only seemed to make it worse. "Here," Rachel said, wetting a napkin and helping Holly with her eyeliner. It was hard to be any kind of accurate when Holly was shaking so much. "Would you sit still?" she asked. Holly dropped her head into Rachel's lap. "I screwed up," she told Rachel with a moan. "What did you do?" Rachel asked quietly, fairly certain that Holly's screw-up wouldn't even come close to comparing with hers. What could beat getting turned into a vampire? Holly said slowly, closely studying a spot on the floor far away from Rachel's eyes. Sort of snorted cocaine with my mom. She looked up and asked, "You think I'm going to hell?" Rachel wasn't quite sure how to answer the question. "Was it your first time?" she asked. Holly shook her head and swallowed loudly. "Mom's talked me into it before." Now Rachel had a lot of questions of her own, but didn't know how to ask any of them. Instead, she just let Holly continue. "Usually I say no," Holly said, "but the only time we ever spend together is when she's getting high. Only time she's not high is when she's working to pay for her drug addictions." "It's not just coke?" Holly narrowed her eyes. "It's never just coke." Rachel heard a customer come into the store, but she was certain the man wouldn't mind waiting. Holly stopped shaking as her eyes turned to anger. "And I'm stuck paying for the rent, and the food, and the laundry. Do you know how much I pay for laundry every week?" Rachel shook her head. "Where's your father in all this?" she asked, passively aware at the same time that the customer in the dining room was wearing high heels and much more likely a woman than a man. The woman was also drunk and making straight for the customer bathrooms. Holly shrugged. "It's just me and my mom," she said, stopping suddenly. "Don't you dare correct me on my grammar." Rachel giggled a little, despite the emotions in the room. "I wasn't going to," she told Holly reassuringly. "Good," Holly said. "I hate it when people do that." Rachel heard the flush of the toilet, and the woman washed her hands before approaching the front counter. "I should go." "Wait," Holly said, grabbing Rachel's arm. "Is there any puke in my hair?" Rachel did a quick comb through Holly's brown hair, but she didn't need to see a thing. One quick sniff was all she needed to be sure. "You're good," she told Holly. As Rachel backed away, Holly grabbed a hair tie and fumbled her hair into a ponytail. "If you can just cover me for another few minutes," Holly said with a lame attempt at a smile, "I'll clean myself up and start on the—" Holly stopped suddenly and pitched forward to dry heave into the bowl. "The bake?" Holly straightened, her lame smile much more grimace now, and she nodded. "I'll start the bake." Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. It was the final round and things were going a little too easy. After Nabila's seemingly miraculous save in the first round, they had a fairly easy time winning their way to the finals. Watching the tournament standings on the web, Andrew tracked one team through every round as they went undefeated to meet Andrew and Bilal's team in the finals. So far, Bilal had already killed two, downing them in the middle of the map easily. The other one was taken out by Darkblade moments later. There was only one player left, but unfortunately none of them knew where that player was. "He's not here either," Darkblade told the team from elsewhere on the map. This search wasn't working. "We need to regroup," Andrew told his three teammates. "He could easily pick us off one by one. We have to use our strengths." "Your smell?" Rachel asked from the couch beside him. "Numbers," Darkblade said deeply into their ears. "Regroup on me," Andrew told them. "You're like a broken record," Nabila said to Andrew. "I'm down here and I have no clue how to get up to you. You should probably just regroup on me." As she finished talking, a shot rang out and blew her head off. Watching from a terrace above, Andrew saw the shot come in, fired from a pinnacle across the map. "Aha, no!" Bilal yelled, turning the cheese level to max. "You will be avenged." Nabila rolled her eyes and threw her controller at Andrew. "This game sucks anyway," she said as she got up and made for her room. Andrew rubbed his elbow even as he surveyed the rest of the map and sighted Bilal stumbling through a garden below. "Watch out, Bilal," he warned. "I'm above you, and I'm pretty sure the sniper has a clear shot on your head." Bilal froze. "Aha! Then why hasn't he taken it yet?" he asked loudly, throwing Andrew a shrug. Andrew knew Bilal at a point. Bilal was completely out in the open. "Maybe he's on the move," Andrew considered, scanning the other side of the map. "I think this guy is their team's Jack Bauer." He was referring to Kiefer Sutherland's character on 24. Excuse me. "Aha! He killed my sister," Bilal said calmly. "Not exactly much of an achievement." Darkblade's voice came through their headsets. I hate that Jack Bauer is a new Chuck Norris. 24 is such a lame show. Right, 'cause Walker Texas Ranger was a great show. Andrew said sarcastically, more focused on trying to figure out where the sniper had disappeared to. A good sniper knew to change locations with every shot. Made it harder on people like Andrew trying to hunt him down. But only the people with thousands of hours of playing the game knew how to do that well. I think he's better than we can handle. Bilal looked across the couch at Andrew, but Andrew was too focused on the game to return his glance. I think I saw some stairs back a ways that might lead you to me, Andrew told Bilal. Just wait there for me. Bilal looked around the map with his character. Here? Aha, here? Bilal asked. Right there, Andrew told him sternly. Andrew turned the corner slowly, checking every corner. There was a movement in the corner of his screen, but it turned out to be a tree blowing in the simulated wind. He followed the stairs slowly to the bottom. Diving across the promenade, he took refuge behind a statue with a wide base. I'm over here, Andrew called to Bilal, who was almost as far from him in game as he was in real life. Bilal inched ever closer, keeping his eyes open for any sign of the sniper. Finally, he dropped down beside Andrew. See anything? Andrew asked. Bilal shook his head. The two of them were still looking out for any sign they could use, but it was as if they were alone on the map. Where's Darkblade? Andrew asked. Bilal shrugged again, but Darkblade spoke up through the mic. I had to run all the way from across the map, he explained, turning the corner and running across the promenade. Stay low, Andrew hissed in a loud whisper, feeling that the other team couldn't hear him. It was too late for Darkblade. Upon Andrew's whisper, Darkblade stopped dead. He was no doubt looking somewhere to take cover, but he didn't have time to decide on anything. A gunshot rang out and his head was easily separated from his body. Bilal screamed like a little girl, as Andrew swore to himself. He wasn't going to lose this to an insanely annoying sniper. Getting up, he rushed in the middle, intent on catching a glimpse of the elite player. Aha! Are you crazy? Bilal said. We have no chance. Won't it be better to hide and hope he accidentally kills himself? You mean like better odds? Andrew asked, slowly distracted by his continued search for any sign of the sniper. Aha, yeah. I guess, Andrew said, finally spotting something, but I'd rather try outsmarting him. This was why he played the game. Not because he had a perverse love to kill, but because he enjoyed playing against other players and matching wits. A lot of the time it was who could outsmart who. Andrew wasn't going to hand over first place. The sniper would have to take it. He's making for the mortar, Andrew told Bilal, following the sniper down the stairs. It was a good idea. The sniper figured everyone would be too busy looking up to check the lowest point on the map, which still had a good sniper's view of the promenade. What the sniper didn't take into account was that Andrew saw him and would be directly in pursuit. Andrew made sure to stay behind him, just out of sight. The sniper lowered, and Andrew jumped behind a barrier just as he looked back. Oh, not lowered. The sniper slowed, and Andrew jumped behind a barrier just as he looked back. Do you want us to win, Bilal? Andrew asked, because I can't do it without you. Aha, what do you need me to do? Bilal asked, slipping out of cover. Andrew kept his head down as the sniper searched for a good spot. I need you to shoot him, Andrew told Bilal. Like right now, you have to shoot down at him. Bilal groaned. But he'll kill me, he whined. It's the only way, buddy. You killed my friends for the last time, Bilal said to the sniper, who could hear him, while stepping up to the edge of the promenade, opening fire with his machine gun. The sniper turned in surprise, and as soon as Andrew saw the man's back, he ran forward and pulled out his shotgun. The sniper only needed a second, even under fire, to snipe off Bilal's head. Aha! Bilal complained, dropping the controller on the couch. It was more than enough for Andrew. Sniper, he said loudly as he pointed his gun at the back of the sniper's head. The sniper started to turn. Meet Shoddy. Scene change. Scene change. Scene change. My head kills, said Ian, rubbing at the exhaustion in his eyes. They'd been Googling names for hours. It was well into the night, and all the lights in the school were off. Ian imagined he would have been kicked out forever ago had he not been there with the school president. This girl was only 14 years old, Tanya said with a gruesome fascination. She was a street urchin during the Great Depression. That's horrible, Ian muttered without much emphasis. He was starting to worry that going through all these names might be desensitizing him. There's pictures, Tanya said with a click, leaning into the screen. Ian caught one glimpse and almost threw up. Next, he said loudly, reaching for Tanya's mouth and hammering madly on the back button. Ian knew Tanya was rolling her eyes, but he ignored her as he read the next name in the book. Lily Carlisle, born 1969 and died 1985. Ian watched Tanya type the name and dates into Google and then leaned back in surprise. What is it? Ian asked, leaning forward to catch a glimpse. She's got family and friends, Tanya explained to Ian, and an entire memorial website devoted to her. I hope someone makes a website for me when I die, Ian said, watching as Tanya clicked on the top result and began scrolling through. And I want it to have a counter at the bottom so I can watch the hits, you know? You think heaven gets broadband? She asked him with a raise of her eyebrow, but her focus wasn't really on what he was saying. All these people who knew her are still alive, she told Ian, showing him the guest book on the Lily Memorial site. She tapped the monitor and said with a grin, I bet we could go talk to some of these people. Ian could feel his eyes widen at her suggestion. Couldn't we just shoot them an email? He asked. Tanya shook her head, continuing to scroll through the site. They don't give any contact information, he told him, but they had a reunion only last year at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Carlisle. This is their address, Tanya said, turning the screen to face Ian. It's in Detroit. Detroit? Ian repeated, his heart jumping into his throat. Toronto, only last weekend, had been the furthest from home he'd ever gone. How are we supposed to get there? He asked with his voice wavering. Bike? Ian gave him a look that couldn't be put into words. We can drive there? She said slowly. I have my license. I'll just steal my dad's car. And drive to Detroit? Ian asked in such a way that straddled the line between question and exclamation. The city's only like 4 hours away, she told him with an arched eyebrow. She seemed almost amused that he was getting so worked up. We can leave at the beginning of lunch and make it back in time for school the next day. We'd only have to skip 2 classes. This is insane, Ian told her, wanting it to be quite clear for her where he stood on the issue. He couldn't believe Tanya didn't seem even the slightest bit bothered by her suggestion to skip school. This could be as close as we'll ever get to meeting one of these girls. Oops, that was her. This could be as close as we will ever get to meeting one of these girls, she explained to him slowly. If we want the whole story of what happened to these girls, we need to go to Detroit. Tomorrow. Ian knew he had to go. He really didn't want to, but at the same time he couldn't let Tanya go alone, and he couldn't tell Rachel or she'd freak. He supposed if there was anyone he could trust for knowing what they were doing, it would be the president of student council. Count me in. And that's the end of the chapter. Alright, chapter 8 is called Code Black in Toronto. Who knows what's that about, especially since Ian was going to Detroit. But that's not going to be this chapter, that's going to be the chapter next week. So thank you for joining me for another edition of 99geek.ca presents A Suburban Fantasy Chapter 7. This has been a book reading by yours truly. I apologize that I closed my eyes for a minute in the middle there. The water helped a lot. Doing over an hour of just reading straight is really freaking difficult. Like, damn. It's hard. But I did it. So, yay. Maybe next time I won't pass out even for 30 seconds. Hopefully it was shorter this time than last time. I feel like it was just like a moment. It was like I closed my eyes, I was like, wait, what am I doing? I think that's what it was. I hope. Should I watch it back? We'll see. I hate watching myself. We'll see. Anyway, so remember, you can always leave me more listener mail. You can leave that on my YouTube comments. You can leave that on my Twitch comments. You can leave that on my... Maybe not on Twitch comments. I don't know if they save those. You can leave that on my Twitter blog. You can leave that... you can go to @Twitter. You can go to www.twitter.com/ at Andrew Gatesy. G as in George, E as in elephant, Z as in car, Z as in zebra, and Y as in why not. You go to that, and you can follow me, you can send me messages, I'll read them on here if they're related to this. There are other ways you can contact me. You can email me, aldon, ALDONN, _clone @hotmail.com. There's also, just go to 99geek.ca, and there's you can subscribe to my Patreon for $1, leave a message there, read all my stuff there. Once you subscribe for $1, you get access to everything. That means my entire library of over 1,000 pages of content, of which we've read only 200 so far. So, yeah, there's a lot more than just this, and it's a lot better than this. This is the first stuff I ever wrote. It gets better. Guaranteed. Should have said that at the beginning. It gets better. But longer too, and I don't know how I'm going to put up with that. But, so that's all that information out there. Other than that, there's a blog. You can find links to everything at 99geek.ca. Just go to 99geek.ca. You'll find what you need. You'll find what you want. You'll find what you love. This is me signing off. Live long and prosper. Stop broadcast, yeah.